Good morning, everybody. Jamie from the Pure Jamie Milne podcast. I am joined by Dan Vann, who has a company in New Zealand, in Christchurch, Evolution Performance New Zealand. He's also the host of the Evolve Your Game podcast. Now, Dan specializes, he is a mental performance coach. He's also been a coach for a very long time, 20 years, if I get my numbers right. Was a teacher prior to stepping into the coaching world for about 18 years now. Dan specializes in working with cricket players, high-level cricketer himself, been a coach for a long time, cricket players, rugby players, and working ultimately on athletes' mindsets. I was very privileged and honored to meet Dan not that long ago when I was over in New Zealand, and we connected really well, and it didn't take long to realize we had similar interests, similar professional roles. But Dan, thank you for joining us, mate.
Thanks for having me on. Privilege. Really always enjoy connecting with like-minded people, legends like you. So
Oh.
no, it'd be good.
Oh, mate, I'm your biggest fan already. Mate, Dan, just as I said, I'd had a look at some of the work you were doing, which is just incredible, and you've been around in the industry for some time. So you've definitely got some experience and wisdom, and of course, formal education in the area. Mate, just a little bit of a backstory just to bring the listeners and viewers up to speed. That would be really cool, just to get a little
Yeah,
insight into what led you here.
yeah, cool. So yeah, as you kind of said, I started out as a teacher. I was always interested in sport and helping people. So like as a teenager at high school, pretty much went to high school to eat my lunch and go to PE, and outdoor ed, quite like outdoor ed as well. And then really just stumbled into teaching because there was a shortage of male teachers. I'm good with young people. Coaching and teaching's pretty similar. So kind of just went, oh yeah, give that a crack. And I quite enjoy teaching. I enjoy aspects of it. There's a whole lot of stuff that I don't enjoy, and that's probably why I don't do much of it anymore.
Yeah.
But it's taught me heaps in terms of just getting in front of so many people, wide range of people, wide range of parents, wide range of other teachers, kids from all different ethnic backgrounds, personal backgrounds, which gives you such a big insight. Because like as a coach, coaching's like it's knowing people and understanding people, and working with what they have rather than telling them. And I think when I first started as a teacher and a coach, I was just I remember it's quite good that I came from this point of view, because I can relate to other people. But I used to be the guy who had to win, and only the good kids got to play, and it was like such a stressful situation. And I can see why the kids battle with that, because like if the coach brings all this pressure and stress, and the other one's like projecting this energy, like it's not a great position. But and this was like 12-year-olds, like it's not the World Cup, and I was like, it was an ego. It's an ego thing, right? Like you want to win and you want to be known as the good coach. But I was actually a terrible coach, because I was giving the guys who weren't. I always compare it now to if you're teaching reading, you wouldn't give the kids who can't read no books, right? Like you've got to give them a chance to read, like. But sometimes with sport we do that. Like we go, no, you're not ready. You can have 5 minutes at the end, like. But they're the ones that need to be getting out there, like. And so often those kids who are either smaller or less confident or just inexperienced, they might end up being long term the better players, because the big strong kids just talented and physically better, but long term they often end up being the they fall off, or they get caught up, or they whatever. So yeah, it's been a long journey. So now I'm completely the other way now. I just turn up and real cruisy. I love watching kids make mistakes, and I don't try and stop them making mistakes, and because that's how they learn, right? Whereas I used to be the guy going, "Get over there! What are you doing?" Trying to like do everything, like, and that was just madness, and it was not actually that enjoyable. And that I went down quite a long, lots of professional development in the cricket coaching area. But then I was this is real weird, because I've got ADHD, unattentive ADHD. I only round that out the last couple of years, which has been a bit of a game changer itself.
Yeah.
But I've got a bookshelf right here. It's got about 20 books in it. Almost all of them are about 50% read. Like I just, but one book. So when I was about, maybe I was 20 something, I went to the library, which is again unheard of. When I was in the library at school, I used to just pick up either the Sport Monthly or the rugby news, and I'd flick through that for about 10 minutes, then get distracted. But I found this book here, so I've always kept it because I don't know, it just caught my eye, and I was like, oh yeah, it's called Sport Motivation by Ken Hodge. I don't know if you know Ken Hodge. He's
No, that name rings a bell. Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of like the granddad of sports psychology in New Zealand. Like he's you know he started off some stuff real early on when it really wouldn't have been trendy or even heard of probably.
Yeah.
Um, and it's called Training Your Mind for Peak Performance. And usually that type of book I probably wouldn't be able to handle because I would have thought it would be a real theory based book. But
Yeah.
what was good about it was it's quite it's storytelling with theory involved in it. So like you'd read about flow state, and it would talk about Nathan Estel's 222, and so you could kind of like it would relate. You remember that story of that game. And I remember watching that game, and then I
Mm.
could apply like, oh yeah, that's how he did that. So, and then
Interesting.
it's got bits in the book where you actually have to write stuff down and actually like apply it.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
anyway, I found that book, and then I was just like, I just kind of got this like, man, the mind has got like, it's such a big influence, and I think it's such an undertrained part. So
Yeah.
I kind of got this fascination for that quite young, which I think is quite unusual because most people seem to find their mental skill stuff later in their when they're probably mature and go, oh, actually, I should have been working on this ages ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Where was this when I was 19?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So then I kind of always just dabbled a wee bit in that, and then I ended up getting into the more mindset stuff when COVID happened because couldn't coach in person. We're all online like this, right? So I was like, what am I going to do? I probably got a fair bit of time here where I'm not going to be able to coach in person. So I'll upskill on this. So I actually just reached out on Facebook and said, oh, is anyone running any mental skills or sports psychology or just anything that I can, upskill? And there's this guy from South Africa, is the Springboks mental skills coach. It's a great program. It was Applied Sports Psychology Level 1. I think it was a diploma or something like that, certificate.
Mm.
But the great thing was it was in the rand, so it was cheap as chips because their money was obviously the exchange rate was nice. Because I reckon it would have been probably in New Zealand that would cost a couple of grand, but it was like $400 for us. And it was a small group. It was like 6 of us. They were all international athletes. There was a Springbok, a guy from the I think the international rower, international hockey player, international. They're all internationals anyway. All elite coaches and players, and yeah, it was the same thing. It was applied sports psychology because I really struggle with just theory. Like I need to know how to apply it, and that's what I think is the important thing. So it was really good because it would teach you a bit about, okay, this is how you work on visualization, self-talk, whatever. But then it would be like, okay, so the client comes to you and this is what you're saying. This is how you need to work with them. This is what you could do. This is what you could do. These are the tools you could try. And it kind of gave you a bit of a framework.
Yeah.
Um, so that was cool. So then I did a couple of online courses with some clients I already had, tested it out, got really good progress. I had this one client who I'd known quite well for a while. He was a student of mine when I was at school teaching, and then he kept doing a bit of coaching at high school.
Yeah.
Just in the cricket sense, though, not really mental skills. And quite a shy kid, really, really, really nice kid, really good player, but really shy. And after we did the program, couldn't something what teenagers are like. Sometimes you can't tell if it's going in or not. They don't give you a lot of feedback sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, and his dad, who's a good mate of mine, rang me or emailed me and said, "What have you done with my son?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Oh, he just went to his prize giving for his football team, and in front of about 100 people, he stood up, wasn't asked to stand up, just stood up and just thanked all the coaching staff and did this big speech. And he like normally wouldn't even talk in front of 2 or 3 people, let alone 100
Oh,
people.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's kind of like, oh, okay, cool. So this stuff's like kind of working, and
Yeah.
um, so then we've kind of just for the only probably the last couple of years, we just integrated it into our normal cricket coaching. Haven't really done it as a specific thing,
Yeah.
but yeah, since we've probably the last 2 years, we've just rebranded to Evolution Performance. We were Evolution Sports Coaching, and now we do more. I'm trying to get more into that. Sports performance mindset, stress mitigation. I think that's a big one. We're doing a bit of stuff with corporates in that area, because I think like that's a massive issue with people at the moment. Like people just being so busy and completely upregulated all the time, and getting to burnout without any skills other than probably having beers and wine to manage it.
Yeah.
um,
Combination stress and grog.
yeah. And so we've had some really good good feedback from that stuff too. So, and it's
Yeah.
really we do it slightly differently. I don't know if you know. Do you know Dave Wood?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
So
know him personally, but I've
no,
seen it.
but you know of him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did his level 1 and 2 calm under pressure workshops about 2 years ago, and then the last one 1 year ago. And he's awesome. Like what I like about him is he's just a real blokey dude, surfer. It's not some, like not some guy stands up in front of you and tells you he knows everything. He's just a sort of good dude. And instead it's not the workshops aren't just like lectures in a room. It's like you get out in the ocean and he chucks you in there and you feel the heat and go, okay, so how'd you feel? Right. We're gonna do it again. This time you're gonna work on your breathing, you get your self-taught right, you're gonna actually apply those skills
Yeah.
under that pressure and go, oh, that felt better. I can understand that. So
So good.
um and doing it out in nature too, rather than doing it in a classroom, like actually out in the elements, which was cool. And like for one, so I found some of the stuff I knew a little bit anyway, the theory from the past stuff, but it was just the way he facilitated it and applied it. I was like, oh, this is a cool way of doing it, which we
Yeah.
hadn't really thought of doing, which is cool. And he's totally. I love the other thing I love about it is like I was like I really worried about like taking his IP and just stealing it. He's like, no, man, everyone needs to know this stuff. Like, give me, tell me whatever you need to help with, and we'll help you, apply it. So he's not thinking of us as competition or anything like that. It's just wants to help other people. That's what's cool about I think coaching these days. People are so much more willing to share. It's not like gatekeeping. Like I know everything, can't tell you the secrets.
There's a lot of people, man, and that's like you said that you said that beautifully. There's so many people out there that could benefit from facilitation and coaching and there's yeah, millions of people.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. There's no shortage of clients. Like so,
that's
with
right.
cricket coaching, there's only so many cricketers, but everyone has stress. Everyone deals with, pressure. So there's no shortage of that. Like we need more people doing it.
Yeah. Just a little question because I know so mindset's a big thing that you as part of that what you work on with like rugby players, cricket players is I mean this might seem like a really really simple question, but I find it quite fascinating. Is there what's the what are some of the like major differences? So if you were working with, say, a rugby player's mindset, you're working with, say, a cricket player's mindset, what I know this is very generalized, big
Yeah,
broad
yeah,
brushstroke, but what would be just one little difference in perhaps, what you'd focus on, what you'd work on with these two different sports?
yeah. We actually do quite a few sports. We do more rugby and cricket in terms of the physical coaching, but we do obviously because we have lots of clients who are rugby and cricketers. We have lots of them doing the mindset stuff too. But yeah, for sure, like they're completely different, right? So cricket's pretty passive sport, very lots of time, lots of thinking time between balls, lots
Yeah.
of external distractions. Whereas rugby's, full on, pretty, there's a fair bit of wait time, but if you miss a tackle, you got to make the next tackle. You haven't got, a minute to think about how bad that was, like, and get in
Yeah,
your head, which
just
is
think
what the
about
cricketers
that.
do. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And like, I know you work with a lot of golfers. Cricket and golf, tennis, they're kind of similar, like they have lots of time between points where they can get in their own head and get in
that's
their own
right.
way. Whereas rugby, I think for rugby, I find it's more about like, sometimes some guys it can be fear of like being hurt, like but bigger guys, especially teenagers. Like I remember when I was a teenager, I was scrawny little white fella playing at Linwood College with big Samoan boys who were like, they felt like they were full grown adults. I felt like I was in kindergarten.
Yeah,
Um, and so that could be, like it's just simply getting over like having the courage to make tackles and actually get in front of people. Like, even though they might have that technique, they might see that big fella running at them and they need to actually like, learn
yeah,
and courage is a pretty cool skill to learn, but it does take a bit of time and effort to work on that. We also have, it's also even just stuff like getting their habits right, getting the stuff off the field right, how they deal with the pressure of their parents, how they deal with, and half the time, a lot of the time, I think because probably not as connected as we used to be, it was a lot of assumed pressure. So
Mhm.
I've got a lot of clients who, so I've got one client in particular, he had a chat with his mum about, well, he didn't have a chat. He was good young player. His parents super supportive, the nicest parents in the world. I couldn't think of them doing anything. There's no such thing as perfect parenting, but they were pretty close. But this kid was like struggling. He felt like he had all this pressure because his parents had invested all this stuff into him, and he didn't feel like he was performing. He was like, "Oh, I'm not living up to the expectations." They're like, we've got no expectations. We just want you to do well and enjoy your sport. But they hadn't had that conversation. So this
Yeah,
assumed pressure was
yeah.
there.
That's quite
Um,
common, isn't it? I've come across that
yeah,
a couple of times,
yeah,
especially
yeah,
with like money, time, driving the
yeah,
kids around, all that
yeah.
type of
It's
stuff.
like a guilt almost, eh? Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. So, and then I just said, oh, okay, maybe you just had the chat, and they actually broke down in tears, and it was all pretty
Oh,
cool. But
oh,
like
that's awesome.
nicely, they were like, oh,
Yeah.
we just needed to get that off our plate and actually know where we stood, because
Oh,
sometimes
that,
you just don't realize. And teach, teenagers are hard because they don't always tell much, or they
yeah.
don't give a lot away, or they just. I remember when I was a teenager, oh man, I was an asshole sometimes to my parents. I was like, man, parents, but they're just weirdos. For a couple of years, they do just change a little bit, and they just get a bit
Right.
cranky with their parents, and they don't. Like I've got a couple of clients who their parents are elite coaches in their sport, but
Mm.
they don't listen to them because they're like, Dad, I don't want to listen to you. Like it's
Yeah,
just
that's
the.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I've heard that's like a evolutionary thing. Like when you get to a certain age, you your brain will actually tell you to stop listening to your parents, and because it's something to do with like leaving the tribe and not being this sounds a lot weird.
I think the way I've heard it, yeah, what you're talking about, you got 0 to 7, which is like your infancy, the most influential time, 0 to 7. Then 7 to 14 is when this kind of social evolution starts happening, and it's
Yeah,
outside of the immediate tribe. Or in
yeah, yeah,
2025, it's like I'm going to start listening to, yeah, Dan, my coach,
yeah.
or I'm going to listen to these other coaches or this other sort of social. So it's that socialization period,
Mm,
which is pretty
yeah,
much when the kids are like, you could be the coach of the All Blacks. I'm not
yeah,
listening.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And we
Listen to
might be saying the exact same thing, but if I say it, it's gospel. If he
100%
says
correct.
it, it's not.
Yeah. Do you,
Yeah,
in terms of on the topic of like mental resilience, or mental toughness, mental fitness, which obviously are all very different. But if I maybe zero in on resilience, what sort of strategies do you have? Any strategies and tools that you share or teach your athletes or students, Dan? Like
yeah,
in that
yeah.
area? Like,
Yeah, that's a big one for us. So our workshop's called Thrive Under Pressure, and what we do in those ones is we basically try to put them under things that are uncomfortable for them. So for me, when I went on the Dave's workshop, the physical stuff wasn't too bad because we do CrossFit and we're used to cutting and pushed, and that
yeah.
was fine. Um, and there was a few other things that were like, oh, actually, water. My big thing's water. So when I was 8, I almost drowned. I was in a river, floating down the river. Oh no, I was in the shallows of a river, just playing with my mate, and just got a bit cocky and went a bit too deep, and the current took me out, and I was bouncing up and down from the I can remember bouncing to the ground, getting up, taking a breath, and I was thinking, this is it, I'm done. And my mate's brother swam out and got me, and I didn't put my head underwater for about 30 years after
Oh,
that.
shit.
So didn't learn to swim. Avoided. I still love the water. Like I'll go out paddling. I'll go out and do water sports with a life jacket on. Happy as Larry. But I
Yeah.
would not. If I go surfing, I'm not going out past my shoulders up or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then so I just had this. I just I've had this thing in my head that I can't swim, can't put my head underwater. It's dangerous. And then
Uh,
I also yeah, I'll just avoid any situation like that. So this last year I went to Australia for a CrossFit comp, and guess what was in the workout? It
yeah.
was swimming. So I had to learn to swim. So I did it. But I had about a month or maybe just a bit longer, might have been 6 weeks. And I just went twice a week, got a coach, and I can swim now. But I still, honestly, it's weird for me to say I can swim. Like it's still in there. Like it's still there that I'm like, no, I'm a
Crazy,
shit
no.
swimmer. I'm a doggy paddler. Like.
Yeah, well, you look at that your age when that happened, and going back to those real influential and formative years where all those deep subconscious, unconscious patterns of behavior and how we react or respond to things. It's like so influential.
Mm. So yeah, so I just yeah. So anyway, when we got to the Dave's program, one of the activities was that you put weight vests on, and you had to crawl on the bottom of a pool for like the whole distance of the length of the pool and back. And I was like, I could barely put my head underwater. But I didn't tell anyone this because my ego's like, I don't want to tell anyone I can't swim.
Just keep this
So
one on the low.
I just did what I could. But I mean, I've got enough awareness of my own mental stuff that I was like, okay, I'm in a safe environment. There's a guy here who's going to pull me out of the water if I'm in a pool that's, waist deep. I'm not going to die. So, um, we'd been doing breathwork stuff the whole time. So that was getting me working on, I didn't have the anxiety and stuff like that too badly. I could put the dimmer on that. And then, I actually managed to do like as good as most people did in the whole thing by the end of it, like it was, and that was kind of like a bit of luckily I did that because then I think the swimming became easier because I was like, I can put my head underwater fine. I'm not going to die, like,
Yeah.
so we kind of try to do activities like that where it's
Mm.
like something that's going to be out of their comfort zone and just dipping their toes and stuff that's not obviously hopefully not life threatening, which is kind of a tricky part of marketing the program, because one big thing that we have is they see all this stuff online of us pushing them and doing hard stuff, and people just go, oh, I can't do that, it's too hard.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's probably why you need to do it, but it's like trying to make it look challenging but not so scary that they're not going to sign up.
Yeah, that's yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so we definitely use breathwork stuff. Like if you told me 2 years ago that I'd be teaching breathwork and that sort of stuff, whatever, that sounds so la, but since I've learned that stuff, like it's incredible. Like the performance improvement stuff, the anxiety management, the um nervous system regulation, the recovery, like there's
Really
so
quite.
many aspects that I was just like, well, breathing's breathing, right? I don't, like you just don't know what you don't know until you've actually experienced it. And then I'm like, oh, why didn't I know this 20 years ago?
Yeah, 100%. It's I remember I did Wim Hof's. I did one of
Oh
his
yeah.
workshops. So I've done two of them with him himself. Did one
Oh
in
wow.
2015. And must admit, I went for the la la. I was there. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
there for the woo woo. I was like, I'll have a bit of this. And yeah, and I remember just my mind being absolutely stretched. Like, and I went with a
Yeah.
guy, a Kiwi fella, Ben Ahipene, and he
Oh,
was the New Zealand Muay Thai coach for about 10
oh
years.
wow.
Like,
Yeah.
like quite a hard little Maori fella. And we both
Mm.
went, and he won't mind me saying this. I still to this day, it was just we were huffing and puffing, and in the workshop, there would have been about 500 blokes, Dan. Like there was so many blokes. It was a
Yeah.
sausage factory. We were all in there. He had these guys on these big bongo drums on the stage, and they were just like boom, 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 boom.
Oh
And he
wow.
all this, oh, it was wild. And so
Like,
I'm like in La La Land, and I look over just one stage, I was holding my breath, and I look over at Benny, and he just had tears all coming
oh
down.
really?
I was thinking, what is this shit? Holy, holy. that particular event just really sparked my
Mm,
curiosity about the whole thing, like the whole
mm,
regulation, and
mm,
of course off down the performance pathway I went with oxygen advantage and all these
mm. Oh, cool.
weird and wonderful insights and stuff. But yeah, it's
Mm.
just really quite incredible how I mean, it's obviously been around for thousands of years and
Yeah.
different modalities, but yeah, certainly now it's a great resource and tool.
Mm.
Do you a
Yeah.
couple of like couple more questions? I'm really interested because you work with sports teams. What's your sort of like strategies or coaching techniques for I suppose, we both know David Neath. David Neath talks about yeah, a collective, he cut
Big
some kind,
Dave.
yeah, Big Dave, some kind of profanity in there, and then uh
Yeah.
collective, he talks about collective intentions and a collective sort of consciousness getting teams to be congruent, sort of it, all working towards that one aim and that one goal. Like what's your approach with like cohesion and amongst the teams? Because we know, there's got to be, a healthy culture,
Mm.
teamwork. What's your sort of strategies around team cohesion?
Yeah, so it's a few teams I've had. So recently we went to Sri Lanka for the Indoor Cricket World Cup.
Mhm.
Um, and my team was, so we didn't have any training camps before we left. We had to go, we just had to and we hardly knew each other because our team was quite
Yeah.
um inexperienced, because a lot of the team, so I played in 2019 in South Africa, which we won that World Cup. And then,
Wow.
so I was the youngest of that team, so that was under over 35s. But quite a few of our team were really good players and stayed in that 35s age group, even though they were 40. So that
Yeah.
when we went up, or up like older, to 40s, the the team was pretty young, like, well, not young, but pretty inexperienced. So we didn't have a whole bunch of like really experienced international players. Um, so we had to do Zoom calls to try and get the sort of, get to know each other. And it was really awkward and painful, to be honest, at the start, like having, 12 guys who don't know each other, just um and we tried all sorts of things. I got them, and it was funny. It was quite cool to see the first day, the first session. I literally talked the whole time, and I'd be like, "Right, your turn to talk," and they'd be like, "Blah blah blah blah." It was very quiet, and
Yeah.
um, and then we kind of, like every week I'd just bring in something like, right, everyone's got to bring a joke and tell a joke, and if any, and just like play games, like if you don't get a laugh, there's a like, so we're trying not to laugh at their joke and just stupid
Yeah.
stuff like that. Or we did a bit of speed dating. So like between that week and then, you had to speak to 5 people in the team, like separately, ring them up,
Yeah.
find out these 3 questions, and then share it with the group. And um just like, it's just connecting, like really getting to know people. Because even in teams I've played in for years and years, um you know sometimes you could just see them on a Saturday, play cricket with them or play rugby or whatever, have a beer
Mm.
in the afternoon, and then see them on a Thursday night. And then you might actually like some of those guys I've got to know quite well and friends with them now, and we actually do know each other quite well because we're connecting outside of the sport. But when it's just sport, you spend so much time just thinking about the sport, and it's a pretty
That's
surface level thing sometimes.
yeah.
Um, and some guys, I was like, man, how did I not know that that one guy had like immigrated from Afghanistan he was a refugee from Afghanistan to Pakistan to here, like,
Wow.
and like I was like, how did we not know that? Like,
That's pretty
he had a
significant.
pretty crazy story actually, but we were just like, oh yeah, it's just Nawad. He's just guy like, um, like, you
Yeah.
just, which is, yeah, it's a bit sad that we don't. And I think guys can be pretty bad at that. That we just, oh, how you going, mate? Yeah, good.
Yeah, 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 that's right. Especially if
But
it focuses the sport, like you said,
yeah,
but there's so much, as you said beautifully, there's so much that's not the sport. These guys
yeah,
have all
yeah,
got stories, and I like how just simple, like the jokes and things to get people
mm,
to connect and go that couple of layers deeper than just like, yeah, you did really well
Yeah,
on it. Great.
we did a vulnerability one as well. So like the further on we got, because I'm not going to bring in that stuff like early on. So it was like a bit later on, like,
Yeah.
okay, guys know each other a bit better, probably feel a bit of trust. Did like a vulnerability one, so like share something you're proud of, share something you've really struggled with, and how'd you overcome it, and that sort of stuff. And that
Wow.
same thing, it was like, wow, this guy's, we had a guy who came from India, a guy came from Sri Lanka, that all immigrated, so we've heard their backstory.
Mm.
Other guys had, family members they'd lost recently, or just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Actually, one program we had, so not so much that cricket one, we did a come under pressure workshop with Bailey's Real Estate. It's a big real estate. I don't know if they're in Aussie, but they're a big real estate company in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So we ran it, and it was kind of stress management, team building exercise. But then we did this vulnerability circle. So it's just like same thing. Tell the group something you're proud of and something you've overcome. And this guy who'd been working with the company for years shared this thing that was like he'd lost a family member to cancer, he lost another family member, lost a friend to suicide. There was all this stuff going on. All his colleagues were like, how have you been working and not told us this? And we don't know any of this stuff. And you've
Wow.
been. And then another guy was like, oh my God, the same thing happened to me like not that long ago. Then they had this connection and they'd actually like had a bit of a support network, but they just don't share that stuff because they're so busy hustling and getting the sales and
Correct.
you
Yeah.
know.
You said it
So
earlier on too. Nowadays, the disconnect that we have, just the environment of 2025, and yeah, these cool little activities. It's such a good idea. Like just such a great, simple concept
mm,
and understanding and being able to empathize and connect. And as we do as humans, we make it about ourselves. So we hear a story and it's like, I got
yeah.
that happened to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it does. It brings bit of rapport, bit of mate. That's all. That's awesome. I
Another one we do, I reckon, is doing like hard stuff as a group. Like so, like
mm,
we like even just like a fun thing like doing an ice bath as a group. Like
yeah.
you can teach them some ice bath stuff and some nervous, breathing stuff. But even just doing that as a group and having a chat about it, and like that's a cool bonding experience, I reckon. Or like we did this Ranui house run for leukemia with a guy, Josh. Do you know Josh Coleman? Have you heard of Josh Coleman?
Josh Coben. You're dropping names. I'm like, I
You
recognize it.
you might know he's a guy who had leukemia a couple of times, really tough, health stuff went on, like
Yeah.
multiple heart attacks, was in hospital for many years and stuff. Now he teaches this breathwork and cold water therapy and stuff and it's basically what's kept him alive. Like it's pretty epic.
Oh wow.
But we did that run with him, and we had like for me a 10K run. I don't run much, and I'm reasonably fit, but 10K run was a decent run for me. Like
Yeah.
I don't do that much. It was tough,
Like a
and then we
true
had some people
CrossFitter.
in it. Yeah, we had some people in the exactly. Some people in the group who hardly run at all, and obviously Josh used to be an elite runner. He's one of the best in New Zealand, but
Yeah.
his health is obviously doesn't let him do those sort of big long runs anymore. So for him, 10Ks was real big. So we did that as a group, and we were sort of 10 or 15 guys, hardly met each other before. But after that event, we had this real strong connection because we'd run together for that 10K. We all supported Josh through it, and we're all there for the same thing. We're all generally, if we go into that sort of event, we've got some sort of common interest, and now we've got 15 mates out of it, and we,
Yeah. How good. Yeah.
so yeah, just doing those sort of things outside of cricket or outside of that sport. So it's actually, you see some other sides of people that way.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think that's why I think like I was in the military for quite a number of years, and when I think back, there was a fair bit of that, and which I obviously didn't understand at the time, just throwing people in very uncomfortable environments and doing
Yeah.
challenging things, lot of adversity, a lot of like genuine tough stuff, and it brings people together.
Mm.
Uh, and I remember doing the ship's divers course in the Navy, and I remember one of the bosses, one of the instructors said, and I did believe it for a long time. He said, this real stuff, the tough stuff is going to sort of mold your character. It'll create your character. This tough, these real challenging sort of workouts and sessions. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking, and I believed that for such a long time. But then as I got older and I started working with people and, as a strength and conditioning coach and putting people in these horrible, like a really difficult long hero workout
Yeah.
or just something really grovelly, I actually started to believe it. I'm not sure it might mold a little bit of character. Oh, what's going on here? But I think it actually revealed character.
Yeah. Yeah.
It actually would give a real good insight into people and what happens when the pressure comes on, and the really tough stuff starts happening. It would reveal sides of people's character. So,
Mm.
little tangent, little
Yeah.
side note, mate. Dan, I'm mindful of time, brother. I reckon I could talk to you underwater
Yeah.
with a mouthful of marbles for hours, and I would really love to reconnect with you at another time as well. Like I'd love to catch up with you again because there's so much I want to ask you, and especially with your experience, mate, and what you do. It's really quite incredible. I'm very grateful for the time this morning. Um, Mate, is it if somebody's curious or they want to reach out to you with questions or go a little bit further with what you do, how can people get hold of you?
Yeah, so my normal social media. So we've got Facebook, Instagram,
Yep.
so Evolution Sports NZ, or Evolution Performance NZ on. Actually, we just got to remember to change that. Evolution Performance NZ, yeah. LinkedIn as well. Trying to get my head around LinkedIn. I don't know if you use LinkedIn much, but trying to
Do,
get
mate.
in the corporate space of trying to get into now. But it's a bit of a new platform. I'm so kind of struggling to get a bit of
Yeah.
I'll use it, but I just don't know how to, compared to the other ones. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, otherwise our website Evolution, it's actually our website's still called evolutionsports.co.nz just because it's we've kept it there that way. But and yeah, we basically most of what we do is individual coaching for athletes. We have a lot of so cricket, rugby is kind of more the physical technical skills, but we obviously do mental skills in that.
Yeah.
And then with other sports, or even corporates or just stressed out people, like we do a lot of stuff with like teachers,
Yeah.
health professionals, corporates, because they are stressed as athletes, and the skills that we learn through the skills we've learned through sport and stuff all apply to that. It's just a different form of applying it, so we can do individual stuff. We do group workshops. We can do master classes. Just whatever works for people. But it's an exciting thing. It's really when something really enjoyed doing the last few years is getting into the different spaces, because it all applies. We all experience stress and pressure.
Yeah.
And I think so many of us unconsciously just battle through it and don't realize how much better we could be in that area, And I'm no saint. Like, there's still plenty of things I can work on, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it definitely, like, just having the awareness of what is manageable, what you can control, and how you can actually, what tools you can use to control them. It's and a lot of them are easy-ish fixes, like they just need some habit changes and a little bit of um, and most of it's all very holistic. I think a lot of people tend to, at the moment, their first call is, medication, alcohol, band-aid repairs, So
Yeah.
we're looking more for that sustainable, holistic stuff,
Love it, man. Dan, thank you so much for your time, brother. You're an absolute champion. I'm gonna go grab some of those links that you shared and I'll chuck them in the show notes and then put it up on social media as well so people can connect with you, bro.
Thanks, brother. You'll have to do the same and jump on my podcast soon.
Hey, anytime, mate. I'd love a good chat, and this has been great, man. Thank you for your time, Dan.
Good. Thanks, brother.
Go well, bro. Take care.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.